Okay, I'm gonna go over all that I know about decentralized social media today. There is so like this. So okay, these are the main things we're gonna go over. This is like mainly what I know about. There's a little more also, a few other protocols. So just why did decentralize first, and then Nostr, kind of an open social protocol stack, and the Fediverse. So why did decentralized social media? The kind of the main thing is censorship. I mean, it's pretty like basic idea of blockchains and decentralization in total. Just to and especially social media has a lot of censorship, especially because I mean, most social medias use a team that gets to decide what fits the content policy or not, which has some obvious drawbacks of people making some poor decisions. And then also another thing is users get to own their own data rather than the website in decentralized protocols. And decentralized social medias are more supportive of content creators than centralized social media. And most decentralized social media protocols will let users kind of decide what posts they want to see. And so one of the things is people get to decide what recommendation algorithms they want to use, or at least they'll have a better understanding of it than centralized platforms. So the first one we'll go over is Nostr. So what is Nostr? Nostr is a simple open source protocol that shares small amounts of data. It's not in itself a social media platform, and it's not a blockchain, and it's not peer-to-peer. So those are kind of like the main things that it's not. It kind of, people might confuse it to be something like that. And so it uses public and private keys and signatures, and it doesn't rely on a central server. So how does it work? So first of all, accounts are pseudonymous, and they use public and private keys. And so your data that gets sent is signed with the private key, uses a signature. And so kind of like this graphic shows, there's clients and relays. And so clients are the users. Like when you open the app, you open up the website, that's a client. And the relays are data servers that are all kind of, people can open them up, run them on their own. And basically clients get to decide which relays they want to listen to and that they want to post to. And so to find a person, you guys both need to be on the same relay, which is a little bit of a hassle. But once that happens, you can listen to anything that comes off that relay. And yeah. So then how social media ties into Nostr is using that data sharing protocol, you built other apps on top of Nostr. So Deimos, Astral, and Coracle Deimos and Astral are like the front ends that look kind of like Twitter. Coracle is actually a little bit different, I'm pretty sure. Jester is another example of it's like playing chess using those relays and clients instead of a centralized server. And like Jester's not, nobody really cares if they're playing chess on a centralized server or decentralized, but it's just an example of something you can build where the information of your moves you get sent to the relay and then to the other person when you're playing them. And there are other types of apps too, other types of front ends that use that data. It's not just those. So the public and private key pair, that's your account, just period, on Nostr. And so basically these different things like Jester, Deimos, Astral, and Coracle are all different front ends that can be used to view this data that's being shared and sent through the relays. So the user can decide which one of those they want to use to see that data, which is basically just like having multiple different front ends for the same thing. And actually the interesting thing about that is Twitter used to have an open API that people could use. So other people could build different front ends to use on Twitter instead of just like the main one. And then Twitter stopped doing that kind of early on. But that was like something cool where you could like personalize it, make like unique versions. This is similar to that. And the other thing that's cool about it is when you go from one of these apps to the other, it keeps all of the people you follow, all of the relays. So it's kind of like, you're going across these different front ends and these different things, and you're keeping a lot of that main stuff. And that's going to be a theme in a lot of these different protocols and ideas. Okay, and then some more stuff on relays. You can like easily subscribe or unsubscribe to relays. You can also do that with any amount of them. And relays can selectively decide which data they're going to like propagate onwards. Here, we can take a little break for the pizza. If you guys want to get some slices. Should we just take a keep going? Okay. Well, you can subscribe or unsubscribe to relays as you want. It's pretty simple. The relays decide what data they want to propagate onwards. So that's something that's really beneficial because that's an easy way to prevent spam and bot accounts. So if there's a relay that is, propagating a lot of spammy messages or propagating bot messages, you can just unsubscribe from that relay. And the relay is also incentivized to not have a lot of bot messages because then people are going to stop using their relay. So that helps with spam, which is an issue in normal social media. And then the only problem with relays is like the incentive to run it is a little questionable of why a lot of people would be doing it or why a lot of people would want to do it. Because right now they're being ran for free, but there is an idea that relays can people who run relays can be paid for it, because if people want to post videos or large amounts of data that take up, that are much more than just like simple Twitter-like messages, it's more work on the relays end. So kind of an idea like that is, you send like a Bitcoin Lightning payment to the relay, and then they would pass the message onward if it's a lot of data. And so the initial like write-up explaining Nostr is it's on GitHub if you want to read it. It's pretty simple, and the original explanation by the creator of the protocol is that it's the same incentive as running a node for like Bitcoin or maybe even like IPFS or something like that. But I mean, I would say for Bitcoin, the incentive for running a node is more of that you want to kind of secure the network that your money is being stored on, which doesn't really fit the situation of relays for social media. Okay, and then some unique features. So this is Jack Dorsey on Nostr, and Jack Dorsey like loves Nostr. If you go on there, you can like he's like posting nonstop, just always talking to random people. Like if you want to interact with him, it's really not that difficult. Like he has like at least like 20 posts a day. He's like always responding to people. And so if you look at this, you can see this. You can't really tell right now, but these are like different relays. I guess you can hover over them and it shows like the name of the relay. This is just the same thing, like replies, likes, and then these are the lightning tips. They call them zaps. So if you want to like tip someone who makes some posts that you like, that you can zap them, is what they say. And so your username is basically your public key. So the way you can find Jack Dorsey is, see right here, you see his tweet. He posted his public key. And you can also use the username too. And so another thing that's cool that you can do is, since you know everyone else's public key, you can log in with either a private or a public key. If you log in with a public key, you get to see that person's feed from their perspective. Like everyone they follow, all of that stuff. So you're logged in like them. The only difference is you can't post as them because you need your private key as the signature for the posts. So it's kind of a cool little quirky feature. And then there's also obviously your like following feed, and most of these front ends have a global feed, which is all of the relays that you're subscribed to. It'll propagate all of the messages from those relays, and so you can see kind of all of the messages that are globally being sent in relays you're subscribed to. Okay, and these were a couple examples of some front ends. So that's I mean, I've used Astral the most. It's that's that top middle one. Coracle, the one on the left, you can see how they have, like notifications, the feed. That's like the global feed. You can manage your relays, keys pretty easily on the left side. Yeah. It's like you literally just type in, like, it'll be some like long number that you just type in, and you kind of that's one of the, you have to like find out about a relay first. There's no like central place to find the names of all the relays. So like I mean, I think the original way I found, like the first one that I subscribed to was just on the Nostr website. They just listed some like big relays, but people will also be like talking about relays or have relays in their bios and stuff like that. Yeah, and then this is right on the bottom middle. That's an example of a Lightning invoice, and that was really early on. That's why it looks a little ugly. And yeah, that was Jack Dorsey's initial tweet. He's always on Nostr. Okay, and then some challenges for Nostr is just the incentives for relays. As I said before, it's not really too clear why someone would want to be putting in the effort to run a relay. And then the other thing is the incentives for developing platforms, because like you can see, one of the issues right now is a lot of these platforms are a little buggy, and they're not too great of a like user interface or experience. So and I mean, it's mainly because like the reason Twitter's able to monetize, they make money off of it. It's much easier for them to be incentivized to hire developers, make a good product. As far as I know, there isn't really any real incentives for the people that are making these as of right now. They're just kind of more people interested in the community and building these front ends. And then the last thing that it affects all of the other ones I'm going to go over too, all the other social medias, is just because already all the big social networks have the network effect of all of the users. And so you want to be where all of the users already are. It's where everyone interacts. It's kind of hard to come along this late and be doing something that's already in place somewhere else, which like a lot of these are like kind of making a Twitter-like client or Reddit-like place, and it's hard to come along and make something like that and then gain all the users from there to switch over. Which yeah, it's the same problem for a lot of these other places. And okay, so this is Nostr, and this is the span of like a month and 10 days. Beginning of December 2022, like middle of January 2023. It grew a lot really quickly. Number of profiles and public keys writing events. That's like they use events as kind of the messages that are being sent, pretty sure. And so that's just kind of the number of messages being sent. It's a measure of it. And you can kind of see how quickly it's growing there. Oh, wait, let's see if that's when Jack Dorsey tweeted it. Oh, December 16th. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so it might not have been that. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Okay, and then, so open social. This isn't like a protocol in itself. It's more of like a overview of the social media stack for some decentralized platforms, which I mean I'll go over it, and it's not like one thing in itself. It's kind of more where people are building and how they kind of fit in with each other. So this is kind of how it gets split up. Data layer is the bottom, then social primitive, then the algorithm, and then the front end layer. And so we'll go through all four of these, and I'll like show you guys examples and what they actually are. So first, the data layer is where it's smart contract layer where transactions that occur are facilitated, and so this is also where the actual like content gets stored directly. So that's why like there's IPFS on here, live peer for video hosting. This is where the actual storage of things that are being posted go. And so this is like the layer one, I guess you could say, of the stack. So these are like standalone. These don't require anything that comes above it. These aren't the actual like social media platforms, but all the social media platforms that come above it kind of use this to host the data. The next one right above it is a social primitive layer. And so this is where you can start seeing the social media part of it. So these are the building blocks of the social apps, the likes, followers, posts, all of that stuff. And this is where it defines the actual relationship between that data that's being stored at the bottom layer and the users. And it creates the actual like network of the social graph. So you obviously wouldn't want there to be a bunch of these. You'd want there ideally to be one or two, ideally one really, because you don't want people to have to go from one place to the other and to like lose all their followers and people they've like made connections with on one platform. You want to kind of carry that over. And so if you guys have heard of Farcaster is kind of building in this area. That's one example. Other example is, and Farcaster is also really interesting. They got like funded by A16Z, and it was kind of too late for me to add information about Farcaster to this, but there's a really good interview that you can find on YouTube of their founder at a conference explaining Farcaster and explaining kind of his idea of why people would want to switch to Farcaster instead of using the traditional social platforms. So just if this interests you, maybe check out Farcaster a little bit too. Lens is another one that is kind of in that same area as Farcaster. So what they do is they basically turn all of these things into NFTs, all of these relationships and all of your posts and all of that stuff. So like for example, every follower of an account holds a follower NFT for that account. And then like all your posts are NFTs and stuff like that. And the thing that this does is it makes a good monetization model of, like for example, you could purchase the NFT of a post of someone. Like one of the after the World Cup, I don't know if you guys saw this, but like Messi posted a picture of him with the trophy like on the plane back, and it's like the most liked Instagram picture ever. So like, imagine there's a limited number of those that people could purchase as an NFT. I mean, I think that'd become like a pretty big commodity when certain things like that happen. And there's obviously more examples of things like that at a smaller scale, and not just posts. Stuff like, like a retweeting action could be something where you give a little tip to the person that you're retweeting as a part of doing the retweet. So that it's a kind of unique, interesting protocol in that space.
So I get the ownership of Messi's Instagram. That's what happens. Like he loses ownership over it.
No. It's still his post.
Okay.
But it's like yeah. I mean, but it's so it's his post, and the NFT would be his post, and you go to his account, you still see it, but you also own that NFT. Just like there's X amount of copies of it. Say when he made that post, he wanted to release like 20 NFTs for it.
Oh, it's like a trading card.
Yeah, like a trading card.
Different from mirrors in that like it's limited.
Mirror, I don't know much about Mirror.
It's like a medium equivalent like block platform, but like you can say block post as an NFT or something.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds similar to that.
It's so much cooler if I actually buy Messi's.
Yeah.
Take away Messi owning NFT. That would be the ultimate value.
Yeah. The next layer above that is the algorithm layer. And so now instead of kind of the central social media platform being able to own the algorithm and them deciding kind of what you get recommended and that stuff, developers would be able to make an algorithm on just based on however they'd like it using the data. And then with that algorithm, any front end can decide you want to use this algorithm or this one. And then maybe the front end could also give the users, which they likely would because you'd want to make as many like features as possible. You want to allow the user to choose which algorithm they want to look at. The only kind of problem with this layer is there's not much of an incentive or like monetization at this level for the developers to have, because at the social primitive layer it's kind of, and at the data layer it's kind of clear that you're storing data, the cost that comes with that, and then at the front end layer that's where all the users are going to be. The algorithm is kind of like it'd kind of be more people making it for fun and sharing it. And then lastly at the top, the front end layer. And so basically the front end layer would use the data at the social primitive layer and the posts and that data to kind of make any feature set that you would like. So you can make a Twitter type of thing, an Instagram type of thing, however you want it. Some of the examples are Iris, Lenster, Tempera. And then also the algorithm would be up to the user or up to the front end to decide how they want people to see their posts, see their feed. And okay, so this kind of stack is one of the really big benefits of it is how friendly it is to creators, because kind of how all the social media platforms work is that the actual creators kind of get a much smaller amount of the profits as a whole that's going to the company, and all the profits usually come from ads, which, as like the example we're talking about before, the creators and the model don't become reliant on advertising to the users, and the creators would get more control over their data, and they'd get more control over ways to monetize their follower base. And the last thing that's also really important is, like right now, if you get banned off of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, you lose your whole follower base and it all goes away. Versus in this stack, if say you did get kicked off of one of these platforms, you would still, at the social primitive layer, you still have all of your posts, all of your data, all of your followers. You still keep all those connections. So when you go from one platform to the other, you keep all of the people that wanted to stay connected with you, and you don't lose that group of people. And then the challenges with this stack is same thing as we were saying before, of standing network effects. And the other thing is scaling transaction throughput, because at the data layer, at least right now, a lot of people are building on top of Polygon, is what I read. Because Polygon had really cheap transaction fees comparatively. Farcaster, I do know, is right now they're on the Goerli testnet for ETH, for Ethereum, and they're going to be moving to mainnet this year, was their plan. But then they said they're going to be charging about $10 a year to use their product. So, well, that's just their example. But a lot of people are using Polygon, and Polygon wouldn't be able, or at least it wouldn't be able to handle the millions or tens of millions of users, which is an issue. But that's also something that is very possible to get resolved in enough time with enough scaling. And just one more thing about the network effects is that if creators are incentivized enough to move over to these platforms, because they can bring a follower base over, and they would like to be able to monetize their users in a way better than they can on traditional platforms. That's kind of the ideal way I would see these platforms catching on, because for most people who are making content, they have a follower base at the moment, but they want to be able to reach as many people as possible, which is why they're on the main platforms that they're on. But there are occasionally people I don't know if you guys have heard of Louis C.K. before. He's a comedian who, his stand-up specials and his tour tickets, he sells both of those on his own, on his website. But he's able to do that because he's one of the biggest comedians in the world, most well-known. So all of his stand-up specials, all of his tour dates, his tour dates get sold out still, even though he's selling them on his own. His stand-up specials still win Grammys. Because he is so famous, he's able to move off of putting a special on Netflix and still bring people with him. So ideally, I think that is what would be able to bring the most people over to these platforms, is if the creators are like, okay, if big enough creators are able to move and they're able to bring their base with them, then that's how I think some of these platforms could gain some traction. And okay, lastly is the Fediverse. And if you guys have heard of Mastodon, has anyone in here heard of it before? Yeah? Okay. Because recently when Elon bought Twitter, a lot of people got kind of butthurt and they all decided to move to Mastodon. So that's why it got somewhat popular recently. And Mastodon's a Twitter equivalent that's built in the Fediverse. So what is the Fediverse? It's a social network running on open source code, and it's split into independent servers, which are also called instances, and anyone can run an instance. And so when you make an account, you register with an instance or a server, and each of those servers or instances have their own terms of service, privacy policy, all of these things, and they also have their own moderation policies and content moderators. And so each of these servers can communicate with each other, just like Gmail just like email, which is if you register an account with Gmail versus Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever it is, you can still email other people who have an email on a different kind of domain, but kind of you're under your specific one. And so that's how the Fediverse works. And on top of that, there's Mastodon, PeerTube, Hubzilla, and there's other ones also. Those are just kind of the most well-known ones. But this I'd say is, out of the three kind of things we've gone over so far, this has gotten maybe the most popular. I'm not sure exactly, but it's the most. Mastodon, I think, is the most well-known out of the three we've gone over. But there are kind of problems that I think are limiting it. It's technically decentralized because anyone can run an instance, but 10% of instances hold half the users. So it's really everyone's kind of grouped up into a small number of instances. And you're not actually resistant to censorship because content moderators still, work for whatever instance you're on, can still ban you, and you kind of lose your follower base, lose all of that stuff. And there's outages are actually pretty common with instances because instances, again, they don't have any economic incentive to be running. So it's I think it's just people running them for fun, their free time. And so outages are common. You lose a lot of data when an outage occurs. And the last thing is the Fediverse is crowdfunded, and Mastodon's crowdfunded in a nonprofit, which again is another thing where it's how are they going to be? Are they really going to keep up with private companies that are making social media platforms who will be able to kind of put money behind their platform and kind of, improve their platform faster than something that's a nonprofit? And this is an example that I saw that was kind of funny of someone who was a moderator of one of the instances who just couldn't handle it anymore. And there's more after this that I didn't think was fit to add at the end, cropped out. But it's just it seemed like a pretty common thing. And Mastodon, it seems kind of ended up just being people who enjoyed their echo chambers on Twitter just moved to their echo chambers on Mastodon, which isn't really an ideal or great social media platform in that way. Which it seems that's kind of similar to the rest of the apps in the Fediverse. Yeah, that was everything. You guys have any questions or anything? Yeah.
This one's a no-stir question. So you said you could basically move to other platforms and have the relays come with you.
Uh-huh.
Also, if I took Jack Dorsey's public key and I put it into one, I could see his feed from his point of view, right?
Yeah.
So how does your public key get associated with relays that it's subscribed to? Where does that mapping happen? How does it happen?
Well, I think I don't know exactly. That's a bit technical, what I understand about Nostr. But I mean, I think it's just sending. It's like when you subscribe to it, I'm sure the relays have they keep track of the public keys that are subscribed to them. So they're just sending information to your client when you're logged in with the public key. I think how it's working. Yeah.
So if I register with the relay with my public key, the relay acknowledges my public key, keeps it in the repository, and anytime it gets detected,
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Is data replicated across the relays that you participate in?
What was that?
Data is replicated across the relays that you participate in, or where is the data stored?
Okay, yeah, that was another thing I was thinking about recently. I don't know exactly where it's stored, but you do have like everything's still kept there.